My name's Chris. I'm 31, and I work the overnight shift at a Valero station about 20 minutes outside Marfa, Texas. If you don't know Marfa, it's this weird little town in the high desert, famous for art installations and something called the Marfa lights, which are these unexplained glowing orbs people see in the distance at night. Tourists come from all over to watch them. There's a designated viewing area off Highway 67 and everything. I'm not here to talk about the Marfa lights, though. What I need to tell you about is different, closer. And I haven't been able to find anyone else online who's experienced it. I moved out here in 2019 after a pretty rough divorce. My ex got the house in Austin. I got the truck and about $14,000 in credit card debt. I needed somewhere cheap to live while I figured things out. And my cousin knew a guy who was renting a trailer outside Marfa for basically nothing. The catch was the job situation out here is non-existent unless you want to work in the service industry catering to tourists. So when the Valero night shift opened up, I took it. The pay is terrible, like genuinely insulting. But the hours work for me because I've never been a good sleeper anyway. And there's something peaceful about being awake when everyone else is asleep. Plus, the cost of living out here is so low that I'm actually managing to chip away at my debt for the first time in years. I've been doing this shift for almost 5 years now. The station is old. Built in the late 70s, I think, and it looks it. There's a main building with a little convenience store section, 2 pump islands, and then this big empty lot behind the property that stretches out toward nothing. No fence, no lights back there. Just hard-packed dirt and scrub brush, and then the desert. For the first couple years, I didn't think much about the lot. I'd take my smoke breaks out back sometimes, staring at the stars, because holy crap, can you see stars out here? No light pollution for miles. The Milky Way looks like someone spilled something across the sky. I'd stand there and think about my life choices, and then go back inside to sell scratchers to truckers. The first weird thing happened in March 2022. I remember the month because I'd just gotten a notification that my student loans were coming out of forbearance, and I was stress-eating hot Cheetos at the register. It was maybe 2:30 in the morning, dead quiet, nobody on the road. I heard something outside, not the normal sounds, not coyotes or wind. This was like footsteps, but wrong, too rhythmic, too steady, like someone pacing back and forth with military precision. I went to the back door and looked out. The security light over the door lit up maybe 20 feet of the lot, and then nothing, just black. I couldn't see anything moving, but I could hear it. Step, 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 step. Pause. Step, 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 step. Pause. The same pattern over and over. I'm not a superstitious person. I grew up Catholic but lapsed hard in college, and I tend to look for logical explanations before jumping to anything weird. So I figured it was an animal, maybe a deer or something. Maybe just weird acoustics from the highway. I went back inside. The next morning when I was leaving my shift, and I walked around back to where I thought the sound had been coming from. And I found something that didn't make sense. There was a circle in the dirt. Perfect circle, maybe 30 feet in diameter. The scrub brush that had been there was gone. Not trampled, not pushed aside. Gone. The dirt inside the circle was packed down hard, almost polished looking, way darker than the surrounding ground. And around the perimeter, there was this ring where nothing grew. Not a single weed or tuft of grass. Just bare dirt in a perfect circle. I took a picture on my phone. I still have it. The thing is, I'd been working there for almost 3 years at that point, and I'd never noticed this circle before, which seems impossible now because it's big and obvious, and you can see it clearly from the back door during the day. I asked my manager about it when he came in for the morning shift. His name's Dale. He's been running this station for like 15 years. He got this look on his face when I mentioned it, kind of blank, kind of careful. "Don't worry about that," he said. "What do you mean, don't worry about it? There's a giant circle in the lot." It's been there a while. Just don't go out there at night. Why not? He didn't answer. Just started counting the register drawer. I let it go because Dale's weird about a lot of things, and I figured he was just being Dale. But I started paying more attention after that. Started looking out the back window during my shifts. Started listening for those footsteps. They weren't every night. Maybe once a week, sometimes twice. Always between 2 and 4 in the morning. Always that same pattern. Step, 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 step. Pause. Like someone walking the perimeter of something. I Googled weird circles in desert Texas and got a bunch of results about fairy rings, which are these natural phenomena caused by fungus growing outward in a circular pattern. But fairy rings have mushrooms. This was just dirt. Hard, dark, dead dirt, where nothing would grow. I found some stuff about cattle circles, which are paths worn into the ground by cows walking the same route over and over. But there are no cattle out here. Haven't been for decades. Then I found something interesting. There's a place in North Carolina called the Devil's Tramping Ground. It's this circular patch of dirt where nothing grows, about 40 feet in diameter. Locals have claimed for hundreds of years that if you leave anything in the circle overnight, it'll be moved or destroyed by morning. The legend is that the devil walks there at night, pacing in circles while he plans his evil deeds. I'm not saying I believe in the devil. I'm just saying I found it weird that there was already a documented phenomenon of unexplained circles in the dirt, where nothing grows and where something seems to move at night. I decided to test it. Okay, so I need to pause here for a second. I've been typing this for like 20 minutes, and I'm realizing there's a lot more to get through than I thought. If anyone's actually reading this and wants me to keep going, I guess subscribe or whatever. I've got like 4 more incidents to cover, and honestly, if nobody cares, I'm just going to stop here and go to bed. I work tonight, and I should probably sleep at some point. Anyway, if you want the rest of the story, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just post this and move on. Right, so, the test. I waited until a night when I heard the footsteps. It was April 2022, probably around 3 a.m. I could hear them out there, that steady pacing. I grabbed a bag of Doritos from the back room, the kind that were about to expire anyway so no one would miss them, and I went to the back door. The security light clicked on when I stepped outside. The footsteps stopped, not faded away. Stopped, like someone hitting pause. I stood there for probably a full minute, listening. Nothing. Just the wind and the hum of the highway in the distance. My heart was doing that thing where you can feel it in your ears. I walked toward the circle. The security light only reached so far, so I had my phone flashlight on. The circle looked different at night, but the dirt seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. And there was a smell. Kind of sweet. Kind of wrong. Like flowers rotting in water. I tossed the Doritos bag into the center of the circle. It landed with a soft crinkle. I stood there staring at it for a minute, feeling stupid, then went back inside. The footsteps didn't start again that night. When I left my shift at 6 a.m., I walked around back. The Doritos bag was gone. Not opened. Not torn up by an animal. Gone. I walked the entire perimeter of the circle looking for it. I checked the scrub brush. I checked behind the building. Nothing. I told myself a coyote took it. Coyotes will take anything. That made sense. That was logical. So I tried again the next week. This time I used a rock. Like a good-sized rock, maybe the size of my fist. I took a Sharpie and drew a smiley face on it so I'd be able to identify it. I put it in the center of the circle around 3 a.m., same as before. Morning came. The rock was gone. I didn't see it anywhere. I even walked out into the desert a bit, thinking maybe something had carried it off. Nothing. A rock with a smiley face on it had just vanished. I started to get a little obsessed. Over the next few months, I left all kinds of things in that circle. A shoe, a beer bottle, a small garden gnome I bought at the Dollar General in Alpine, a Bible, because I figured if this was something supernatural, a Bible might have some effect. Every single thing disappeared by morning, every single one. I set up my phone to record overnight once, propped it up against a rock at the edge of the circle, aimed at the center. When I checked the footage the next morning, the phone had died around 4 a.m. even though it had been fully charged. The footage up until then showed nothing, just the empty circle. No movement, no animals, no explanation for where everything was going. But here's the part that really got to me, the part I keep coming back to. One night in July 2022, I was watching through the back window around 2:45 a.m. The footsteps had started earlier than usual, and I saw something. Not clearly. The security light wasn't on because I was inside, and the only illumination was from the stars and a sliver of moon. But I saw movement in the circle. Something walking the perimeter. Something person-shaped, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall. Arms too long. Moving with that mechanical rhythm I'd been hearing for months. It walked in a perfect circle. Never deviating, never speeding up or slowing down. Just step, 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 step. Pause. Step, 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 step. Pause. I watched for maybe 10 minutes. Then it stopped. Right at the point of the circle closest to the building. And I swear to God, it turned toward me. I couldn't see a face or features or anything, just the shape of it, the silhouette, tall and wrong and looking right at me. I stepped back from the window. My hip hit the counter, and I knocked over a display of beef jerky. By the time I looked back outside, there was nothing there. I didn't go out back for the rest of that shift. I didn't go out back for the rest of that month. Okay, I need to stop being cagey about this and just tell you what else happened, because that wasn't even the worst part. In September 2022, we hired a new guy for the evening shift. His name was Marcus, mid-20s, just moved from Houston. Nice kid, a little naive. He asked a lot of questions about the area, wanted to know about the Marfa lights, kept talking about how he was going to go out to the viewing area on his day off. One night he came in early to pick up something from the back, and I was dealing with the register, so he went through on his own. A few minutes later, he came back up front with this weird expression on his face. "There's a circle out back," he said. "Yeah." "What is it?" "Don't know. Don't go out there at night." "Why not?" I told him what Dale had told me. Don't worry about it. Just don't go out there after dark. But Marcus was one of those people who doesn't let things go. Over the next few weeks, he kept asking questions. He looked stuff up online, and he found the same information about the Devil's Tramping Ground that I had. He got excited about it in a way that made me uncomfortable. "We should investigate," he said one night when our shifts overlapped. Like, actually investigate. Bring cameras, sensors, whatever. This could be huge. It's not huge, it's just a circle in the dirt. Where things disappear overnight, where you hear footsteps. Dude, that's not normal? It's Texas. Nothing here is normal. He didn't listen. Of course he didn't listen. Why would he? In October 2022, Marcus stayed after his shift ended to hang out with me during the slow hours. We talked about nothing important. His girlfriend back in Houston. My divorce. The general pointlessness of working retail in the middle of nowhere. Around 1 a.m. he said he was going to go home, but he didn't leave right away. He kept looking toward the back of the store. "I'm going to go check it out," he said. "Don't. Just for a minute. I just want to see it at night." "Marcus, seriously, don't." But he was already walking toward the back door. I should have followed him. I should have physically stopped him. But I didn't. I stood there behind the register and watched him push open the back door and step outside. The security light clicked on. I could see him through the window, standing on the edge of the lot, looking toward where the circle was. He stood there for maybe 2 minutes. Then he walked toward it. walked into the darkness beyond the security light's reach. I lost sight of him. I waited. The security light timed out and clicked off. Everything was dark and quiet. "Marcus?" I called from the door. No answer. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight and went outside. The air felt wrong, thick and heavy even though it was October in the high desert, and should have been cool and dry. That smell was there, that rotting flower smell. I walked toward the circle. Marcus was standing in the center of it. He was just standing there, facing away from me, completely still. I said his name again. He didn't move, didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge me at all. "Marcus, hey, you need to get out of there." Nothing. I walked closer. I was maybe 10 feet from the edge of the circle. The dirt looked darker at night, almost black. Marcus was still standing in the middle of it, his back to me. Then he turned around, and he was smiling. This wide, wrong smile that didn't look like him. His eyes were open too wide. His head was tilted at an angle that looked uncomfortable, almost mechanical. "It's so quiet here," he said. His voice sounded normal, but the words came out spaced wrong. Too much pause between each one. "Marcus, come on, get out of there." "I don't want to." "You need to." "Why?" I didn't have an answer. I just knew he needed to get out of that circle. Everything in me was screaming it. "Because I said so. Come on, shift's over anyway." He looked at me, still smiling, still wrong. Then he walked toward me, crossing the edge of the circle, and the second his foot hit the dirt outside of it, he stumbled and blinked and looked around like he'd just woken up. What was I doing? You don't remember? I was going to look at the circle. Did I? How long was I standing there? Maybe 5 minutes. It felt like a second. I walked him to his car and watched him drive away. He called me the next day to say he was fine, just tired, and he'd probably just had a weird moment from sleep deprivation. He kept working at the station for another few months, but he never mentioned the circle again. And sometimes I'd catch him staring toward the back of the store with that same blank expression he'd had that night. So I'm like 20 minutes into writing this, and it's getting really long. I've got more to tell you, including what happened this year, that made me decide I finally needed to post about this. If you've gotten this far, just subscribe, I guess. I know that sounds desperate, but I'll only post the rest of this if people actually read it. I'm not trying to farm for engagement or whatever. I just need to know I'm not screaming into the void. Anyway, back to it. After the thing with Marcus, I started researching more seriously, not just Googling random phrases, but actually trying to understand what I might be dealing with. I drove to Alpine, which is the nearest actual town with resources, and I went to the Sul Ross State University Library. They have this collection of local history documents, old newspapers, census records, land surveys. I spent like 6 hours going through everything I could find about the area where the gas station is located. The land was owned by a ranching family called the Hardings from about 1890 to 1955. There was a ranch house on the property that burned down in 1943. According to the newspaper clipping, it burned in the middle of the night. No one was home at the time. No cause was ever determined. In the 1950s, the land was sold to a development company that planned to build a motel and restaurant to serve travelers on the highway. Construction started in 1957. According to the local paper, workers kept quitting. The article didn't say why, just that they had difficulty retaining labor. The motel was never finished. The foundation is still out there, apparently, about a mile north of the station, though I've never seen it. In 1962, a man named Walter Crane bought the land and built what would eventually become the gas station. It was a different company back then, some regional brand that doesn't exist anymore. Walter ran it until 1978, when he had a heart attack and died in the back room. His son took over for a few years, then sold it to Valero in the early 80s. None of this explained the circle. But I found one more thing. In a 1964 edition of the local paper, there was a tiny item in the back pages, just a few sentences. It said that Walter Crane had reported unusual activity on his property to the sheriff's department, and that an investigation found no evidence of trespassing or vandalism. That was it. No details about what the unusual activity was. I tracked down Walter Crane's son. It took some doing, but people out here are surprisingly willing to talk if you buy them a beer at the right bar. The son's name is Henry. He's in his late 60s now, lives in Odessa. I drove out there to talk to him. He didn't want to talk at first. The second I mentioned the property, he got this look on his face. Same look Dale had. Blank. Careful. No, I don't have anything to say about that place, he said. I work there. Night shift. I've seen things. He looked at me for a long moment. The circle? Yeah. He took a long drink of his beer. My dad used to talk about it, he said finally. Said it was there when he bought the land. Said the previous owners told him to plow over it, fill it in, but nothing would take. Grass wouldn't grow, concrete wouldn't set. He tried covering it with gravel once, and the gravel was gone by morning. Just gone. Did he know what it was? He had theories, none of them good. He said the native folks in the area knew about it before the ranchers came. They wouldn't go near it. Called it something in Spanish that he couldn't remember exactly. Something about walking in circles forever. Purgatory? Maybe. I don't know. He didn't like to talk about it much. Just said to leave it alone. Don't go near it at night. Don't look at it too long. What happens if you do? Henry finished his beer. My dad said he looked once. Looked out the window late at night and saw something in the circle. Wouldn't tell me what. After that, he started drinking more. Died of a heart attack at 52. I asked him a few more questions, but he didn't have much else to say. Before I left, he grabbed my arm. Why don't you just quit? He asked. Because I need the money. There are other jobs. Not out here, there aren't. He shook his head and let me go. I drove back to Marfa thinking about everything he'd said. The native legends. The thing Walter Crane saw. The way nothing would grow in that circle and nothing left inside it would stay. I started looking into infrasound as a possible explanation. Basically, sound waves below the range humans can consciously hear. It can be caused by wind, geological activity, even large machinery. And apparently, it can cause all sorts of psychological effects. Feelings of unease, visual disturbances, the sensation of being watched. There's this famous study where researchers piped infrasound into a room, and subjects reported seeing figures in their peripheral vision, feeling cold spots, experiencing inexplicable dread. The high desert is windy. Really windy. Maybe there was something geological going on that created infrasound at certain frequencies. Maybe that explained the feelings. The sense of wrongness. It would be such a nice explanation. Neat. Scientific. Normal. But it doesn't explain where the things I left in the circle went. It doesn't explain what Marcus experienced. It doesn't explain what I saw walking the perimeter that night. I kept working. What else was I going to do? I needed the money, and jobs are scarce. And I'd already told myself I'd stay until my debt was paid off. I just stopped going out back at night. I kept the back door locked. I tried not to look through the window between 2 and 4 a.m. It worked for a while. For almost 2 years it worked. Then in February of this year, something changed. February 2024. It started getting worse. The footsteps were every night now, not just once or twice a week. Every single night between 2 and 4 a.m., that steady rhythmic pacing. Step, 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 step. Pause. Step, 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 step. Pause. I could hear it through the walls. And I started seeing things when I wasn't at work. At first it was small stuff. Movement in my peripheral vision when I was at home in my trailer. Shadows that seemed to shift when I looked away. The feeling of someone standing behind me when I was alone. I went to a doctor in Alpine and told them I was having visual disturbances. They ran some tests, checked my eyes, asked about headaches and seizures. Everything came back normal. The doctor suggested anxiety and offered me a prescription for something. I took it. It didn't help. In March, I woke up in the middle of the night in my trailer, and there was something standing at the foot of my bed, not clearly visible, just a shape, tall and wrong with arms too long, standing perfectly still in the darkness of my room. I couldn't move. I don't know if it was fear or something else, but my body just wouldn't respond. I lay there staring at this shape, this silhouette, for what felt like hours. Then my alarm went off because I'd set it to wake me up for my shift, and the shape was gone. Just like that. 1 second it was there, and the next it wasn't. I told myself it was sleep paralysis. It's a real thing. Your brain wakes up before your body does, and you can hallucinate figures in the room. The shadow man, they call it. There's even cultural names for it in different traditions. Scientific explanation, logical, normal. But sleep paralysis doesn't explain the dirt on my floor the next morning. Dirt that looked exactly like the dirt in that circle. Dark and hard and almost polished. I started sleeping with the lights on. I started keeping music playing all night. I started avoiding the back of the store completely, even during the day. I would count inventory wrong just so I didn't have to go to the back room. April. May. It kept getting worse. I'd be at the register, and I'd look up and see someone standing outside the back window. Just standing there, looking in. All was the same shape. Tall. Wrong. Arms too long. I'd blink and it would be gone. I stopped sleeping more than a few hours at a time. My work performance tanked. Dale asked if I was okay, and I said I was fine. What was I going to tell him? That the thing from the circle was following me home. In June, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I was going to confront it. Looking back, this was incredibly stupid. But I was running on no sleep and constant low-grade terror, and I just needed it to stop. And I needed to understand what was happening to me. I went to the station on my night off, parked in the lot around midnight. Waited. At 2:17 a.m., I heard the footsteps start. I got out of my truck. I walked around to the back of the building. The security light clicked on, illuminating the edge of the lot. The circle was there, but it was different now. It was bigger. Way bigger. When I'd first noticed it, it was maybe 30 feet in diameter. Now it looked closer to 50, and the edge of it was closer to the building, maybe 10 feet from the back door. I stood there staring at it. The footsteps had stopped when I came out. "What do you want?" I said, out loud. I felt stupid saying it, but I didn't know what else to do. Nothing happened. "What are you?" Still nothing. I took a step toward the circle, then another. The security light was behind me, casting my shadow forward onto the dark dirt. My shadow looked wrong. Too long, arms too stretched. I realized I wasn't casting that shadow. I turned around, and it was there. Right behind me. Right between me and the building. Tall. 7 feet, maybe more. Arms that hung past where its knees should be. No face that I could see. Just a smooth, dark surface where a face should be. Standing perfectly still. Not breathing because I don't think it breathed. We stood there looking at each other. Or I looked at it and whatever it was doing. I don't know if looking is the right word. "What do you want?" I asked again. My voice came out as a whisper. It raised one of its long arms. Slowly. Mechanically. It pointed at the circle behind me. Then it walked past me. Right past me. So close I could feel the air move. It smelled like rotting flowers, like sweetness gone wrong. It walked into the circle and began its pacing. Step, 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 step. Pause. Step, 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 step. Pause. I ran to my truck and drove home and sat in my driveway until the sun came up. That was 3 months ago. I'm still working at the station. I know how stupid that sounds. But I need the money, and I've got less than $4,000 left on my debt. And after that, I'm gone. I'm out of here. I'm moving somewhere with no desert and no circles and no things that walk in the dark. The circle is still growing. It's maybe 15 feet from the building now. Dale's noticed, but he won't talk about it. Marcus quit last month and moved back to Houston. I don't know if something happened to him or if he just finally decided to get out. I don't hear the footsteps every night anymore. But sometimes, when I'm at the register at 3 a.m., I feel something watching me through the back window. And sometimes, when I'm at home in my trailer, I see a shape at the foot of my bed. I've done more research. I've looked into everything I can find. The closest explanation I've found is something called a liminal space, which is supposed to be a transitional area between one state and another. But that's too abstract to be helpful. The other explanation is that it's exactly what the old legends say it is. A place where something walks in circles forever. Planning. Waiting. Growing. I don't know what happens when the circle reaches the building. I don't know what happens when it reaches my trailer. I don't know what it wants, or why it's here, or where all those things I left in the circle went. All I know is that I've seen it now. It's seen me. And something about that feels permanent in a way I can't explain. So that's what's been happening. I've never told this story in full before, because honestly, who would believe me? But typing it all out, seeing it written down, it makes it real in a way that's actually kind of terrifying. I mentioned there's more to this. Things I left out because I didn't want this to get too long. The photographs I took of the circle over time, showing how it's grown. The audio I recorded on my phone, where you can kind of hear the footsteps if you listen closely. The journal I started keeping of every weird thing that happens at that station. If you actually read this whole thing, if you got to the end, then maybe you deserve to know the rest. Subscribe and I'll post the second part. I'll include the photos and the audio and everything else I've documented over the past 2 years. I don't know if there's a rational explanation for any of this. Maybe there's some geological phenomenon I haven't discovered yet. Maybe I'm experiencing some kind of slowly progressing mental illness, and none of this is real. That would almost be a relief, honestly. But I know what I've seen. I know what I've heard. And I know that circle is still there, getting bigger every month, waiting for something. If anyone reading this has experienced anything similar, especially in Texas or the Southwest, please reach out. I need to know I'm not alone in this. I'll try to post the second part within a week or 2. Just need to mentally prepare myself to go through all those photos and recordings again. Thanks for reading. Seriously, just knowing someone else knows about this now helps more than you'd think. I work night security at a rural Texas cemetery. I need to tell someone what's in section 14. I've been typing and deleting this first sentence for like 20 minutes now, because I genuinely don't know how to make this sound believable. Okay, let me just start with the basics and go from there. My name's Chris. I'm 31, live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Lewisville, Texas, about 40 minutes south of where this all happened. I've been working night security for Greenwood Memorial Cemetery in rural Denton County for almost 3 years now. Before you ask, yes, cemetery security is a real job. And no, it's not usually as creepy as it sounds. Mostly it's keeping teenagers out, making sure nobody's dumping trash, occasionally dealing with someone grieving at 2 a.m., which is sadder than it is scary. The pay is decent for what it is, on $17.50 an hour, full benefits after 6 months, and I basically get paid to sit in my truck and listen to podcasts. I work the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, 4 nights a week. It's boring. That's the whole point. I took this job because I needed something low stress after burning out at my last gig doing Amazon warehouse work. My knees were shot. My back was killing me, and I was having these stress migraines that made me want to die. So when I saw the listing for overnight security at a cemetery, I figured, hey, dead people don't complain about prime shipping delays. I should mention I'm not a superstitious person. Like, at all. I grew up going to church because my parents made me, but I stopped believing in any of that stuff by high school. I'm the guy who watches horror movies and points out all the logical inconsistencies. I've worked this job for almost 3 years and never once felt scared. Uncomfortable sometimes? Sure. Sad. Definitely. But not scared. That changed about 6 weeks ago. I need to tell someone about this because I'm starting to question my own memory, and that scares me more than anything else. I've got notes on my phone, timestamps, even some photos that I'm still not sure what to do with. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the layout of the cemetery, so this makes sense. Greenwood Memorial is old, like 1847 old. It's one of those historic Texas cemeteries that started as a family plot and just kept expanding. The main section near the entrance has the newer graves, the ones from, like, the 1960s onward. Manicured grass, flat headstones, the kind of cemetery you see in movies. But as you go further back, toward the tree line, the graves get older and weirder. Ornate Victorian monuments, obelisks, those creepy angel statues with their faces worn off by weather. Some of the headstones are so old, you can't read the names anymore. The cemetery is divided into sections, numbered 1 through 16. Sections 1 through 10 are the main cemetery, the parts that are maintained and visited. Sections 11 through 15 are the older historical areas. Section 16 is basically just forest that the cemetery technically owns, but never developed. Section 14 is where this all started. Section 14 is weird. I knew that before any of this happened. It's the oldest part of the cemetery that's still technically a cemetery, dating back to the original 1847 plots. But unlike the other historical sections, 14 doesn't get maintained. The County Historical Society does some work on sections 11 through 13 because there are some notable people buried there, but 14 is just kind of forgotten. The grass grows wild, the headstones are mostly fallen over or buried under decades of leaves and dirt, and there's this massive oak tree right in the center that's so old it predates the cemetery itself. My supervisor, Dale, told me when I started that I didn't need to patrol Section 14. Nothing back there worth protecting, he said. Just old bones in that damn tree. I asked him about the tree once, and he just kind of shrugged and said, "People tell stories." I didn't push it because Dale's not exactly a conversationalist, and also I didn't really care. It was just a tree. For almost 3 years, I avoided Section 14 because there was no reason to go back there, so my patrol route covered the main sections, the parking lot, the maintenance building, and the perimeter fence. Section 14 wasn't on my route, and the path back there was overgrown anyway. Then, in early April, we had a problem. Someone was getting into the cemetery at night and doing something in Section 14. I didn't discover this myself. One of the groundskeepers, a guy named Miguel, mentioned it to Dale during shift change. Said he'd been back there looking for a property marker and found evidence that someone had been hanging around. Trampled grass, cigarette butts, what looked like candle wax on one of the old headstones. Dale asked me to add Section 14 to my patrol rotation. I'll be honest, I was annoyed. Section 14 is a pain in the ass to get to. You have to park at the edge of Section 13 and walk through about 200 yards of overgrown path just to reach the main clearing. At night, with just a flashlight, it's slow going. And for what? Some teenagers playing Ouija board or whatever? But Dale's the boss, so I started checking Section 14. The first few times were uneventful. I'd walk back there around midnight, and again around 4 a.m., do a quick loop around the clearing, make sure nobody was there, and head back. The oak tree was impressive, I'll give it that. Massive trunk, probably takes 4 people with linked arms to get around it. The branches spread out like a canopy over most of the clearing. Even on nights with a decent moon, it was dark under that tree in a way that felt intentional, like the darkness was a thing the tree was doing rather than just an absence of light. That's a weird way to put it. I know how that sounds. Let me just say what I mean. It was darker under that tree than it should have been based on the available light. I noticed it, but didn't think much of it. The first really weird thing happened on April 17th. I've got the exact date because I texted my friend Jake about it right after, and I can see the timestamp. 1:47 a.m. I was doing my midnight patrol of Section 14. Walked back there, did my loop. Everything normal. I was about to head back when I noticed something on the oak tree's trunk. Fresh scratches. Like really fresh. The exposed wood underneath was still pale, not weathered at all. There were maybe 8 or 10 scratches, about chest height, each one probably 6 inches long. And they looked like claw marks, but way too big for any animal I could think of. Maybe a bear? But there aren't bears in Denton County. I took a photo with my phone. Flash made the scratches look even more dramatic. I texted Jake. Me. Dude, something weird at work. Jake. Or job is weird. Me. No, like actually weird. Me. Found scratches on a tree. Me. Like big scratches. Jake. Probably some kind of buck-rubbing antlers. Me. In April? Jake. I dig, man, I'm not a deer scientist. Jake. Take a pic? Me. Sent photo. Jake. Huh. Jake. That's weird. Me. Right? Jake. Could be fake, though. Jake. Like someone with a tool. Me. Why would someone do that? Jake. People are weird. Jake. Remember that guy who was carving penises into park benches? Me. Fair. Me. Probably just some kids being idiots. Jake. Yeah. Jake. Stay safe, though. Me. Always. I convinced myself it was nothing. Jake was probably right. Someone with a chisel or a heavy knife screwing around. The cemetery had been dealing with trespassers after all. This was just more evidence of that. But something about those scratches stuck with me. Not the scratches themselves, but how they were positioned. Chest height on me, and I'm 5 feet 10 inches. If someone was carving them while standing, they'd have to be about my height. But the angle was wrong. They went from upper left to lower right, the kind of angle you'd get if you were swiping downward. If a person standing on the ground made those marks, they'd have to be taller than me and swiping down at an awkward angle. It didn't make sense ergonomically, unless they weren't standing on the ground. I didn't let myself think about that too hard. The second weird thing happened 4 nights later, on April 21st. I was doing my 4 a.m. patrol, just wanting to get it over with, so I could go back to my truck and finish my podcast. I walked the path to Section 14, same as always. The moon was maybe half full, enough light to see the general shapes of things, but not details. I stepped into the clearing and immediately felt like something was off. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and you can tell someone was just there? Like the air hasn't settled yet? It was like that, but stronger. Way stronger. My body reacted before my brain caught up. I had goosebumps, actual physical goosebumps, and I felt my heart rate spike for no reason I could identify. I stood there at the edge of the clearing, flashlight in hand, and just listened. Nothing. That was the problem. It was too quiet. April in Texas, you should hear crickets, frogs, something. But there was nothing. Just that ringing you get in total silence when your ears are straining to hear something. I swept my flashlight across the clearing, and same old headstones, same overgrown grass, same massive oak tree. Nothing there. But the tree looked different. I couldn't figure out what was different about it at first. Same trunk, same branches, same canopy. Then I realized The scratches I'd seen 4 nights ago were gone, not healed over. That would have taken years for marks that deep. Just gone. The bark was smooth where the scratches had been. I walked up to the tree and ran my hand over it to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Smooth bark. No scratches. I checked my phone, pulled up the photo I'd taken. Zoomed in to confirm, yes, I was looking at the right spot on the trunk. The scratches in the photo were exactly where I was touching now, and there was no trace of them. My brain immediately started coming up with explanations. Maybe I was misremembering which tree. But there was only one tree that size in the clearing. Maybe someone had filled in the scratches with something. But what? And why? Maybe the bark had somehow regrown incredibly fast. But that's not how trees work. I stood there with my hand on the tree for probably 2 full minutes, just trying to process what I was looking at. Or not looking at, I guess. Then I felt something I've never felt before, and hope I never feel again. The tree was warm, not like sun-warmed wood, even though it was 4 a.m. and hadn't seen sun in hours. Warm like a living thing, like touching someone's skin. I yanked my hand back so fast I almost dropped my flashlight. Okay, quick pause. I'm like 15 minutes into typing this out and realizing this is going to be way longer than I thought. If you're actually reading this and want me to finish the whole thing, let me know or subscribe or whatever. I've got like 3 more incidents to cover. And honestly, if nobody's reading, I'm just gonna go to bed. Anyway, back to what happened. I basically ran back to my truck. Not full-on sprinting, but that fast walk you do when you're trying to convince yourself you're not scared while very clearly being scared. I sat in my truck with the doors locked and just breathed for a while. My hands were shaking. That slight tremor you get from too much coffee, except I hadn't had coffee in hours. I called my girlfriend, Amy. She was asleep, obviously. It was like 4:15 a.m., but she answered because she's used to me calling at weird hours. "Hey, you okay?" she answered, voice groggy. "Yeah, I'm fine, just, are you able to talk?" "It's 4 a.m. I know, I'm sorry. Oh, something weird happened at work." Weird how? I tried to explain about the scratches and the warm tree, and realized halfway through that I sounded insane. Amy was quiet for a long time. "Chris, are you sure you're getting enough sleep?" Yeah, I'm fine. Because you know sleep deprivation can cause hallucinations." "I'm not hallucinating." "I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying maybe you need a day off." "Yeah, maybe. Get some rest when you get home, okay?" "I will. Love you. Love you, too." I hung up before she could ask more questions. The thing is, I know what sleep deprivation feels like. I worked those Amazon warehouse shifts for 3 years, sometimes pulling doubles. I've been so tired I saw movement in my peripheral vision that wasn't there. I've been so tired I forgot entire conversations. This wasn't that. I was wide awake. I had the photo of the scratches on my phone. Those scratches had been real, and now they weren't there. I didn't go back to Section 14 for the rest of that shift. I told Dale I'd checked it, and it was clear. First time I'd ever lied on a report. For the next week, I avoided Section 14 as much as possible. I'd do a drive-by, shine my spotlight toward the tree line, and call it good. Dale didn't question it. The trespasser thing seemed to have resolved itself anyway. No more reports of disturbance. Then May 2nd happened. I remember the exact date because it was a Thursday, and I was supposed to meet Amy for breakfast after my shift, which meant I was checking my phone more than usual to make sure I wouldn't be late. It was around 1:30 a.m., and I was doing my perimeter check along the back fence when my flashlight caught something weird. There was a person standing at the tree line, just standing there, at the edge of Section 14, not moving. My first thought was, finally caught the trespasser. I started walking toward them, already rehearsing my, "This is private property, you need to leave" speech. But something made me slow down. The proportions were wrong. I don't know how else to describe it. The figure was person-shaped, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But the limbs were too long for the torso. The head was tilted at an angle that would be uncomfortable for a human to hold. And it was standing absolutely, perfectly still, in a way that humans just don't stand. We shift our weight, we move our heads, we do something. So this figure was as motionless as the trees behind it. I stopped walking. I was maybe 50 yards away, close enough to see the shape, but not details. I raised my flashlight, but my hands were shaking too bad to hold it steady. "Hey!" I shouted. My voice came out weird, kind of thin and shaky. "This is private property. You need to leave." The figure didn't move, didn't respond, just stood there. I stood there too, trying to convince myself to walk closer. Every part of my body was saying, "Don't." That animal brain warning that humans don't like to admit we still have. Every instinct telling me that whatever that thing was, I should not get closer to it. I got my phone out without taking my eyes off the figure, opened the camera, turned on the flash, took a photo. When the flash went off, the figure was gone. Not walked away, not ran, just gone. Between the flash and my eyes adjusting back to the darkness, whatever had been standing there had vanished. I looked at the photo on my phone. My hands were shaking so bad, it took me 3 tries to pull it up. The photo showed the tree line, the fence, the grass, nothing else. But there was something wrong with the photo that I didn't notice until later. The oak tree in section 14, the one that should have been barely visible from where I was standing, looked closer than it should, like it had moved toward the camera, which is insane because trees don't move. I went back to my truck. I sat there until sunrise. I didn't patrol again that night. The next few weeks, I did my job on autopilot. I avoided section 14 completely. I told myself I'd been tired, stressed, seeing things. The figure had probably been a deer standing weird. The tree thing was a trick of the light. The scratches, well, I must have misremembered where they were. But I couldn't explain away the feeling. Every night when I came to work, I felt like something was watching me. And not from section 14, from everywhere. Like no matter where I was in the cemetery, something in that clearing knew exactly where I was and was paying attention. I started noticing things that might have always been there, and I'd just ignored. The way animals seem to avoid the back half of the cemetery. I'd see deer in section 3 all the time, but never past section 10. Birds were sparse everywhere, but especially quiet near section 14. Even the insects seemed to thin out back there. I started doing research, just casual at first, to Googling Greenwood Memorial Cemetery, Denton County, and Old Oak Tree, Texas Cemetery. Didn't find much. The cemetery had a basic website listing hours and services, nothing historical. Then I tried searching for Denton County folklore. That opened up a rabbit hole I wasn't prepared for. Apparently, there's a thing locals call the murder tree. I found a Reddit thread from like 8 years ago, someone asking about local legends in North Texas. One commenter mentioned the murder tree of Denton County, said it was an old oak tree in a forgotten part of a cemetery, that it was supposedly connected to multiple deaths, going back over 100 years, and that locals avoided it. The comment didn't have many upvotes, and no one had replied to it. I kept digging, found a Facebook group for Denton County history buffs, searched through their posts until I found a discussion from 2019 about the old Greenwood tree. An older woman had posted asking if anyone remembered stories about it from when they were kids. A few people replied with vague memories, being warned not to go near it, hearing their grandparents talk about bad ground, that kind of thing. One reply stood out. A guy named Robert claimed to be a local historian, said the tree had been there before the cemetery was established, that the original landowner, a man named Ezekiel Marsh, had specifically excluded that area from the cemetery plot because of what he called spiritual contamination. Robert said there were newspaper articles from the 1890s mentioning bodies found near the tree, but he couldn't locate copies. I messaged Robert through Facebook. He never responded, and I went to the Denton County Historical Society. They had archives going back to the 1880s, including old newspapers on microfilm. I'm not a researcher. I don't know what I was doing, but I spent an entire Saturday scrolling through old issues of the Denton County Record. I found 3 articles. August 1891. Body of transient found in Greenwood Cemetery. A man identified as a drifter had been found dead, near the old oak at the rear of the property. Cause of death listed as unknown, possibly animal attack. November 1903. Youth missing, last seen near Greenwood. A 16-year-old boy had gone missing after telling friends he was going to see the devil tree. His body was never found. The March 1922. Greenwood caretaker found deceased. A cemetery caretaker had been found dead beneath the marsh tree with unexplained injuries to the torso and neck. 3 deaths, 3 different decades, all connected to the same tree. I should mention here that I also looked into the scientific explanations. I'm not an idiot. I know there are logical reasons for this stuff. I found information about infrasound, basically sound waves below the range humans can consciously hear, like below 20 hertz. It can be caused by wind, geographical formations, even large trees in the right conditions. And apparently, it can cause feelings of unease, visual disturbances, even that feeling of a presence nearby. It's a real documented thing. So maybe that was it. Maybe the tree, due to its size and the way the wind hit it, was producing infrasound that made me feel creeped out and see things that weren't there. That would explain the fear, the figure that disappeared, all of it. Except, it doesn't explain the scratches that vanished. It doesn't explain the tree being warm. Doesn't explain what happened on May 24th. May 24th was a Friday night. I remember because I was annoyed I had to work on a Friday. It was unseasonably hot, like 87 degrees at midnight, and humid in that way Texas gets, where the air feels like you're breathing soup. I was sweating through my uniform shirt before I even started my first patrol. Around 2 a.m., I was doing my perimeter check when I saw lights in Section 14. Not flashlights. These were different. Flickering, orange, like candles or fire. Multiple sources of light, moving around the clearing. I grabbed my radio to call it in to the non-emergency police line, which is protocol for trespassers. But my radio was dead, which was weird because I'd checked the battery at the start of my shift, and it was fully charged. I got out my phone. No signal. I usually had at least 2 bars anywhere in the cemetery, but right then it showed nothing. No service. I should have gone to my truck, driven out to the main road where I'd have signal, and called from there. That's what I should have done. That's what a smart person would do. Instead, I started walking toward Section 14. I don't know why. I've thought about this moment a lot over the past few weeks, and I still can't fully explain it. Part of me was just sick of being scared. Part of me was curious. And part of me, the part I don't like to think about, felt like I was supposed to go, like something was pulling me. The walk to Section 14 had never felt that long before. Usually, it was maybe 10 minutes, taking my time. That night, it felt like forever. The path seemed to stretch in front of me, the tree line getting closer, but never arriving. I was sweating harder now, and it wasn't just the heat. My flashlight kept flickering, even though the batteries were fresh. When I finally stepped into the clearing, the lights were gone. But there were people there. At least, I thought they were people at first. There were 5 of them, standing in a rough circle around the oak tree. They were wearing white, some kind of old-fashioned clothing. Dresses, shirts with high collars. the kind of thing you see in historical photographs. Their backs were to me. "Hey!" I shouted. My voice sounded weird, muffled, like I was talking through a pillow. "This is private property. You need to leave immediately." They didn't turn around. They didn't move at all. I walked closer, maybe 20 feet from the nearest figure. Close enough now to see details. They weren't people. I mean, they were person-shaped. They had heads and arms and clothes, but they were flat. Two-dimensional almost, like photographs projected onto the air. And the closer I looked, the more I could see through them, like they were made of fog or smoke that just happened to hold a shape. I stood there, flashlight in one hand, trying to process what I was seeing. My brain was doing that thing where it keeps cycling through explanations and rejecting all of them. Projections. But from where? Hallucination? But I was wide awake. Ghosts. But I don't believe in ghosts. Then they all turned around at once. Their faces were wrong. I can't describe it better than that. They had features, eyes, noses, mouths, but the arrangement was off, like a picture that's been distorted in Photoshop. And they were all looking at me with expressions I couldn't read, because expressions require normal faces to make sense. One of them moved its mouth. No sound came out, but I could see the lips forming words. The same word over and over. Come. 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 I'm going to finish this, but I want to say something first. The part I'm about to get into is the reason I finally posted this. It's the part that keeps me up at night. I left some stuff out earlier because I was trying to keep this short. But screw it. If you've read this far, you deserve the full story. Subscribe because I'm thinking about posting the actual evidence I mentioned. Photos, recordings, the works. I don't know if I should make that public, but if enough people want to see it, I'll figure out how. Anyway, back to that night. I don't remember deciding to run. One second I was standing there watching those things mouth the word, "come," at me, and the next I was crashing through the overgrown path back towards Section 13, branches slapping my face, flashlight beam bouncing wildly. I could hear something behind me. Not footsteps exactly. More like a rustling, like every leaf and branch in the forest was moving at once, getting closer. I hit the edge of Section 13, and my foot caught on something, an old headstone buried in the grass, and I went down hard. Flashlight flew out of my hand, skidded across the ground. I rolled onto my back and looked toward Section 14. The tree was closer. I don't mean metaphorically. I don't mean it seemed closer because I was scared. I mean the massive oak tree that had been in the center of the Section 14 clearing was now at the edge of the clearing, maybe 30 feet from where it had been. As if it had moved while I was running. And in the darkness beneath its branches, I could see shapes moving. Those figures, still mouthing that word. And something else, something bigger, something that I only caught in glimpses. Too many limbs, arranged wrong, moving in a way that living things shouldn't move. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed my flashlight, and ran. I didn't stop until I was in my truck with the doors locked and the engine running. My phone showed full signal. My radio was working again. It was 4:47 a.m., which made no sense because I'd entered Section 14 around 2 a.m. I'd lost almost 3 hours. I called in sick the next 3 days. When I came back to work, Dale asked if I was okay. I told him I'd had food poisoning. He didn't push it. I avoided Section 14. If Dale noticed, he didn't say anything. I told myself I was done. Whatever was back there, I wasn't going to interact with it anymore. I would do my job, patrol the normal sections, and pretend the back half of the cemetery didn't exist. That lasted about 2 weeks. On June 7th, I arrived for my shift and found a note on the security office desk. Dale's handwriting. Chris, new grave in Section 14. County Historical Society had remains moved from old family plot. Do verification sweep tonight and note any damage to surrounding markers from the excavation equipment. Oh, no thanks. There was a map attached, showing the location of the new grave, right next to the oak tree. I considered quitting on the spot. Actually had my resignation text typed out to Dale. Then I thought about my rent, my car payment, the dental work I needed done. I thought about how I was going to explain to Amy why I'd quit a decent-paying job because I was scared of a tree. I did the sweep. I waited until after 5 a.m., when the sky was just starting to lighten. I figured if the scary stuff happened in darkness, maybe daylight would protect me. Which sounds stupid when I type it out, but that was my logic. I walked to Section 14 with my flashlight in one hand and my phone in the other, filming everything. If something happened, at least I'd have evidence. If nothing happened, I'd have proof I was overreacting. The clearing looked normal. The figures were gone. The tree was back in its original position in the center. The new grave was where the map indicated. Fresh dirt mounded over a rectangle of earth. No headstone yet. The excavation had disturbed some of the nearby markers, knocking over a small obelisk and cracking another headstone. I documented the damage, taking photos and making notes. Normal security stuff. Everything was fine. Then I noticed the scratches. They were on the tree again. Same position as before, chest height. But there were more of them now. A lot more. The entire trunk facing me was covered in deep gouges, dozens of them, crossing over each other in a chaotic pattern. And in the center of the pattern, where the scratches were deepest, I could see something. It was like looking through a window into somewhere else. The bark was thin there, almost translucent, and through it I could see darkness. Not regular darkness. This was darker, denser, like a physical substance. And in that darkness, something was moving. I raised my phone to film it. The thing in the darkness moved toward the thin spot in the bark. I couldn't see details, just shadows against a deeper shadow. But I got an impression of size. Whatever it was big. Too big to fit inside a tree, even one this size. Like looking through a keyhole into a room and seeing something the size of a building. The thin spot in the bark bulged outward, just slightly. Like something was pressing against it from the other side. A hand, or something like a hand. Too many fingers, too long. To pressing against the barrier between whatever was in there and the world out here. I ran. I don't remember the run back. I just remember being in my truck, driving too fast, not stopping until I was on the highway heading south toward Louisville. I didn't go back for my second patrol. I didn't call Dale. I just left. I've been on personal leave since June 8th. Told Dale I had a family emergency. He was understanding about it. Said, take whatever time I needed. I haven't told Amy the full story. I told her I was thinking about changing jobs, that the night shift was affecting my mental health. She's been supportive. We're looking at apartments closer to Dallas, where I could get a normal day job. I haven't gone back to the cemetery. I don't know if I ever will. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The new grave in Section 14, the one the County Historical Society arranged. I looked it up after I got home that morning. The remains had been moved from an old family plot that was being developed for a shopping center. The remains belonged to a man named Ezekiel Marsh, same name as the original landowner I'd read about, the one who excluded Section 14 from the cemetery due to spiritual contamination. They put him next to the tree he'd tried to avoid. I don't know if that matters. I don't know if anything I think I understand about this actually makes sense. I've been researching more, going down rabbit holes I probably shouldn't go down. I found an old letter in the Historical Society archives, written by Ezekiel Marsh in 1843, 4 years before the cemetery was established. He was writing to his brother back east, and most of the letter was boring family stuff. But one paragraph stood out. The old oak, which you may recall from your visit, stands sentinel yet upon the back field. I have erected a fence around it and forbid the children from approaching. The ground there is not right. Father claimed the tree was here before even the Indians settled this land, and that it was old when they arrived. I do not know its origins, but I know what manner of thing takes shelter in its shade after nightfall. It drinks deep of this soil and grows ever larger. Should I fall before my time, burn me rather than bury me. Do not let my flesh feed that thing's roots. They didn't burn him. They buried him right next to it. I don't know what happens now. I don't know if the thing in the tree is contained by the tree or just using it as a doorway. I don't know if moving Ezekiel Marsh's body there was random bureaucratic chance or something the tree arranged somehow. I do know that the cemetery is still operating. People still get buried there. Night security is still just one guy in a truck. And I know that Section 14 is still back there in the darkness, and the oak tree is still standing, and whatever I saw through that thin spot in the bark is still pressing against the barrier, trying to get through. I need to stop thinking about this. I need to move on, get a new job, try to convince myself that what I experienced was stress and sleep deprivation and infrasound and nothing more. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm not done with that tree. Or maybe it's not done with me. I keep checking Google Maps, looking at the satellite view of Greenwood Memorial. The image is from 2022, before any of this happened to me. Section 14 is there, a dark green smudge at the edge of the cemetery. The oak tree is visible, a slightly darker spot in the center. Last week I checked again, and I swear the tree is bigger in the satellite image than it was before. Which is impossible because the image date hasn't changed. But I've looked at it enough times to have it memorized, and something is different. I'm probably just paranoid. I probably need to stop looking. But I keep looking anyway. So that's what happened. I haven't told this story in full before. Typing it all out, it made it real again in a way I wasn't expecting. Look, I mentioned earlier there were other incidents. Stuff I left out to keep this from getting too long. The voices I heard on June 3rd. The photograph that showed something standing behind me when I was alone. The night my truck wouldn't start until I promised out loud that I'd come back. If you actually read this whole thing, if you got all the way to the end, then maybe you want to know the rest. Subscribe and I'll post the second part. It involves the letter I found. The complete letter. Not just the paragraph I quoted here. And the photographs, the ones my phone took that night that I haven't been able to bring myself to look at closely. There are 6 of them. I only remember taking 2. And if there's enough interest, I'll share the audio file. My phone was recording video, which means it was recording audio too. I didn't mention this earlier because I'm not sure I should make it public. But you can hear it. You can hear the thing I was running from. I don't know. Maybe I'm losing my mind. Maybe there's a logical explanation I just haven't found yet. But I know what I experienced. And I know that tree is still there. And I know that whoever's working night security at Greenwood now, if anyone is, they're patrolling within a few hundred yards of something that was old before this land had a name. I hope they stay away from Section 14. Subscribe if you want the rest of the story. I'll try to post the next part within a week or so. Just need to mentally prepare myself to look at those photographs. Thanks for reading. Seriously. Just knowing someone else knows about this now. It helps. I'm writing this because I need someone else to know about this, and I can't exactly go to my boss. So I'm Matt. I'm 31. And I work night security at a self-storage place outside Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's one of those big facilities off Highway 30, like 400 units, climate-controlled, the works. I've been doing this for about 2 years now. The pay is mediocre, but it's quiet. I can listen to podcasts, and honestly, after working retail for 8 years, I'll take boring over dealing with customers any day. The job is pretty straightforward. I show up at 10 p.m., do a walkthrough of the whole facility, check the gates, monitor the cameras, and basically make sure nobody's trying to break in or live in their unit, which happens more than you'd think. We've got maybe 6 cameras total for the whole place, which sounds like a lot, but really isn't when you've got 4 buildings. Most of my shift, I'm just sitting in the office watching YouTube or scrolling Reddit. My girlfriend works day shift as a dental hygienist, so we barely see each other, which sucks. But that's a whole different issue. This started maybe 3 weeks ago. Middle of February, so it's cold. That wet Iowa cold that gets into everything. I was doing my usual rounds around midnight. I do a full walk-through every 2 hours. That's policy. Though, honestly, sometimes I skip the 4 a.m. one if it's really cold. I was in Building C, 3rd floor. That's where Unit 237 is. I'd walked past it 100 times before, never thought about it. Just another orange door with a number on it, one of the 10 by 10 units. But that night, I noticed the lock was different. Now, some people change their locks sometimes. They're supposed to tell us, but they don't always. So that wasn't weird by itself. What was weird was that this lock was really old. Like, not old as in worn out, but old as in antique. It was one of those heavy brass padlocks, the kind you see in museums. It had this green patina on it, that oxidation you get on old metal. I stopped and looked at it for a minute. Checked my clipboard. Yeah, Unit 237, rented to someone named J. Hoffman, paid through the end of March. I made a mental note to mention the lock to my supervisor, but honestly forgot about it pretty much immediately. 2 nights later, I was doing my midnight walkthrough again. Same route, Building C, 3rd floor. I got to Unit 237 and stopped. The lock was different again. Not different as in changed. Different as in, it looked newer. The brass was brighter, less tarnish. I stood there with my flashlight on it trying to figure out if I was remembering it wrong. I even pulled out my phone and took a picture, which I don't usually do. But something about it was bugging me. I went back to the office and checked the camera footage. We've got 1 camera that covers that hallway, mounted at the end. The angle's not great, and the quality is pretty rough. It's an old system, but you can see the doors. I scrubbed through the footage from the past 48 hours. Nobody had gone to Unit 237. Not one person. The hallway was empty except for me walking through. Which, okay, weird. But maybe I was just remembering the lock wrong. I've got like 400 units to keep track of. I'm not memorizing every lock. I saved the photo and figured I'd keep an eye on it. The next night, so this is 3 nights after I first noticed it, I went straight to Unit 237 on my first walkthrough. The lock was gone completely. Just the hasp was there, the metal loop thing you put the lock through, but no lock. The door wasn't open. It was still secured. But there was no lock on it. I stood there for probably 5 minutes just staring at it. My brain was trying to make it make sense. Someone had come and removed the lock. Obviously. Except I'd checked the cameras every few hours, and nobody had been in that hallway. I called my supervisor, got his voicemail because it's 11:30 p.m., and he's asleep like a normal person. "Hey Rick, it's Matt. Got a weird situation with Unit 237. Lock's missing. Door's still closed, but there's no lock on it. Just wanted to report it. I'll check it again in a couple hours. Let me know if you want me to do anything different." I went back to the office and pulled up the camera footage again. Scrubbed through the whole night. Nothing. Empty hallway. Just me walking through. I checked the gate logs. Nobody had entered the facility since 6 p.m. when we closed to customers. The gate requires a code, and every code is tied to a specific unit. It logs everything. Nobody with access to Building C had entered. Okay, so I should probably mention I'm a pretty skeptical person normally. I don't believe in ghosts or whatever. When I hear hoofbeats, I think horses. Not zebras, you know? So I was trying to think of logical explanations. Maybe there's a back entrance I don't know about. Except I've worked here 2 years. I know every door. Maybe the cameras have a blind spot. Except I could see the unit door clearly in the footage. Maybe someone came in before 6 p.m. and hid until after we closed. Except where? I check every building. And why would someone do that just to remove one lock? I went back up at 2 a.m. The lock was back. Same brass antique lock from the first night, heavy patina. Look, I know how this sounds. I'm not saying it was magic or ghosts or whatever. I'm saying I don't know what it was, and that's what was getting to me. Things don't just appear and disappear. I took another photo. Tried the lock. It was actually locked. I couldn't lift the hasp. Solid. I put my hand on the door, I don't know why. It was cold. But everything's cold. It's February in Iowa, and the building's not heated. I stood there and just listened for a minute. Couldn't tell you what I was listening for. Or maybe sounds from inside the unit. But it was silent. That particular kind of silent you get in big empty buildings at night, where you can hear the structure settling, the metal contracting in the cold. My phone buzzed, and I about jumped out of my skin. Text from my girlfriend. Sarah, you awake? Me. Yeah, working. Me. What's up? Sarah. Can't sleep. Sarah. Having weird dreams. Me. About what? Sarah. IDK-like. Old stuff. Childhood stuff. Sarah. It's dumb MVM. Sarah. Love you. Me. Love you too. I pocketed my phone and took one more look at the lock. The metal had these engravings on it. Decorative scroll work. I hadn't noticed that before. I leaned in closer with my flashlight. The engravings looked like letters, but I couldn't make them out. The patina filled them in too much. I thought about trying to clean it off to see what it said, but that seemed like a bad idea for reasons I couldn't articulate. I finished my rounds and went back to the office. Pulled up the rental records for Unit 237 on the computer. J. Hoffman. Rented August 15th, 2023. So about 6 months ago. Paid through March 31st. No phone number on file, which isn't required, but most people give us one. Address listed was here in Cedar Rapids, a street I didn't recognize. Payment method was money order, which is unusual but not unheard of. Some people don't like using cards. There was a note in the file from Rick, my supervisor. Just said, prepaid 8 months. No contact needed. I looked up the address on Google Maps. It was a vacant lot. Just empty grass near the old Quaker Oats plant. Okay, so that was weird. But people use fake addresses sometimes, especially if they're storing stuff they don't want traced. Divorce situations, repo situations, whatever. Not really my problem. I checked the access logs. J. Hoffman's gate code had been used exactly once, August 15th at 2:34 p.m., the day the unit was rented. Never again after that. So someone rented a unit 6 months ago, came in once, and never came back, and paid 8 months up front in money orders, and now the lock was doing whatever it was doing. Okay, quick pause. I'm like 15 minutes into typing this out and realizing this is going to be way longer than I thought. If you're actually reading this and want me to finish the whole thing, let me know or subscribe or whatever. I've got like 3 more incidents to cover. And honestly, if nobody's reading, I'm just gonna go to bed. Anyway, I'm back to what happened. So I went home that morning at 6 a.m. when the day shift guy showed up. Didn't sleep great. Kept thinking about that lock. I know that sounds dumb. It's just a lock. But something about it was really bothering me. I woke up around 2 p.m. and checked my phone. Rick had called me back, left a voicemail. Hey Matt, got your message about 2:37. Don't worry about it. The renter probably came by during day hours and took care of it. If the door's secure, don't worry about it. Thanks for reporting, though. Except that didn't make sense because I'd checked the access logs and J. Hoffman's code hadn't been used. And day shift would have mentioned seeing someone on that floor because Building C isn't used as much. It's the oldest building. I called Rick back. Hey, yeah, I checked the logs and nobody's accessed that unit, I said. Well, maybe they had a friend do it. Listen, Matt, if the door's secure, I wouldn't stress about it. People do weird stuff with their units. Not our problem as long as they're paid up. The thing is, the lock keeps changing. Silence on the other end. What do you mean changing? Like, it looks different every time I check it. Different amount of tarnish. And last night it was gone completely for a couple hours, then it came back. More silence. Matt, are you feeling okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I took photos. I can show you. Okay, well, bring them in tonight and we'll take a look. But Matt, between you and me, night shift can mess with your head sometimes. The same hallways, the silence. Your mind plays tricks. I worked nights for 5 years before moving to days. I get it. Right, yeah. I'll show you the photos. Sounds good, buddy. He hung up. I sat there feeling like an idiot. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was just tired and not remembering clearly. I pulled up the photos on my phone. I had 2. One from the second night. One from the third night after the lock had come back. I zoomed in on both of them. They were identical. Same lock, same patina pattern, same everything. The scratches on the metal were in the exact same places. So either I was remembering wrong about the lock looking different, or something else was happening. I stared at those photos for probably 20 minutes, trying to figure out what I was missing. I got to work that night at 10 p.m. Rick was still there. He usually leaves at 6, but sometimes stays late doing paperwork. Hey, you got those photos? He asked. I showed him on my phone. He looked at them, zoomed in, handed my phone back. Looks like a lock, he said. Right. But it was gone for a while, I told you. And you checked the cameras? Yeah, nobody went near it. He rubbed his face. He looked tired. Look, Matt, I'm not doubting you, but we've got 400 units, and the cameras aren't perfect. Someone could have slipped past. Or maybe there was a glitch, and the footage didn't record. These cameras are ancient. They mess up all the time. He wasn't wrong about the cameras. Why don't you go check it now? And if anything's actually wrong with the unit, like the doors open or there's signs of break-in, call me immediately. But if it's just the lock looking weird, just keep an eye on it and we'll deal with it in the morning. Sound good? Yeah, okay. I went and did my first walkthrough. Building A, B, C, D. Got to building C, 3rd floor. Walked down the hallway to Unit 237. The lock was different again. This time it was new. Brand new. Shiny brass, no patina at all. Looked like it had just come out of the package. Same style as before, same antique design, but pristine. I took another photo. I tried the lock, locked solid. I knocked on the unit door. Hello, anyone in there? My voice echoed in the empty hallway. I felt stupid immediately. Nobody was in there. Nobody could be in there. The unit's only 10 by 10. You can't stand up in there for hours. And anyway, how would they have gotten in with no code access? I put my ear to the door and listened. Nothing. I went back to the office and checked the footage. Same story. Empty hallway, nobody there. I called Rick. It's different again, I said when he picked up. Matt. He sighed. Is the door secure? Yes. Is there any sign of break-in or damage? No. Then I need you to let it go for tonight. We'll come by tomorrow during day shift. I'll bring a bolt cutter. We'll open it up and see what's in there. Maybe there's something inside that's causing some kind of gas leak, and it's affecting you. Carbon monoxide or something. Carbon monoxide. I'd actually thought about that earlier. I Googled it on my phone while he was talking. Symptoms include confusion, dizziness, seeing things that aren't there. But carbon monoxide doesn't take photos. I had photos of the lock. Different photos showing what I was seeing. Okay, I said. Tomorrow. Get some air. Step outside for a bit. I mean it about the night shift thing. Oh, it messes with you. I hung up and sat there in the office. The building was completely quiet except for the heaters clicking on and off. I pulled up the camera showing the hallway with Unit 237. Empty hallway. Orange doors. Fluorescent lights that flicker a little because they're old. I watched for probably an hour. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. At 2 a.m. I did my walkthrough. I debated skipping Building C, but that felt like admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. I walked down the third-floor hallway. Unit 233, 234, 235, 236, 237. The lock was covered in rust. Deep orange-red rust, flaking off. Looked like it had been sitting in water for years. I didn't touch it. I took a photo and kept walking. When I got back to the office, I pulled up all 4 photos on my phone, laid them out in order. Onto photo 1, heavy green patina. Photo 2, same lock, same patina, or so it appeared. Photo 3, brand new, shiny. Photo 4, covered in rust. I know about oxidation. I know that brass turns green when it oxidizes, and iron turns orange-red. This lock was doing both, and doing it in hours. Or it was different locks. But why would someone keep changing locks? And how were they doing it without appearing on camera? I opened a new tab and Googled locks changing storage unit. Got a bunch of results about how to change a lock, what kind of locks to use, storage unit security. Nothing helpful. I tried storage unit haunted. Got some creepypasta stories, some Reddit threads, nothing that seemed real. I tried objects changing appearance. That got me into some weird territory. Stuff about the Mandela effect, false memories, quantum mechanics. I ended up on a Wikipedia page about something called the frequency following response. Basically, your brain can sync up with certain frequencies, and it can affect your perception and memory. It's used in meditation apps and stuff. Which, maybe there was some kind of sound frequency in that hallway that was making me perceive the lock differently. Except that doesn't explain the photos. The photos were different. I looked at the photos again. Really looked at them. Wait, I zoomed in on photo 3, the shiny new lock. Looked at the engravings on it. Then zoomed in on photo 4, the rusted lock. The engravings were different. Not just covered up by rust. Actually different designs. Photo 3 had simple scroll work. Photo 4 had what looked like numbers? No, I couldn't make them out under the rust, but there were definitely shapes that could be numbers. So these were different locks. Someone was physically changing the locks every few hours. But who? And why? And how without being seen? I went back and scrubbed through the camera footage from the entire night. Watched it at double speed. Empty hallway, me walking through. Empty hallway, me walking through again. Empty hallway. Wait. I backed up the footage. Watched it at normal speed. There. At 1:47 a.m. The camera flickered. Just for a second. Maybe half a second. Like a glitch. I watched it again. Yeah. Definite flicker. The image went black, then came back. I checked the other cameras. At exactly 1:47 a.m., all 6 cameras flickered simultaneously. Power surge, maybe? Except the lights didn't flicker, just the cameras. I made a note of the time and kept scrubbing through footage. Found another flicker at 3:22 a.m. and another at 4:51 a.m. There was a pattern, but I couldn't figure out what it was. 1:47, 3:22, 4:51. That's intervals of 95 minutes, then 89 minutes. No obvious pattern. My shift ended at 6 a.m. I wrote up a detailed report for Rick, included the times of the camera flickers, mentioned the photos showing different locks, suggested we open the unit today. Day shift guy came in. Dennis, older guy, retired from the post office. Does this for something to do. Anything exciting? He asked like he always does. Not really, I said, which was easier than explaining. I drove home, Sarah was already up, getting ready for work. "You look exhausted," she said. "Weird night." "What happened?" "How do you explain this?" I tried. There's this storage unit at work and the lock keeps changing." She looked at me. "Changing how?" "Like different locks. Or the same lock, but it looks different each time. I don't know." "Is someone messing with you?" "I don't think so. I've got it on camera and nobody goes near it." She came over and put her hand on my forehead like checking for fever. "You feel okay?" "Rick thinks I'm going crazy from night shift." "Are you?" "I don't think so. I've got photos. I can show you." I pulled out my phone, but the battery was dead. "Of course." "Show me later," she said. "Get some sleep. You're working again tonight?" "Yeah." "Maybe you should call in. You look really tired." "I'm fine. Rick's going to open the unit today. We'll figure out what's going on." She kissed me and left for work. I plugged in my phone and collapsed into bed. I had weird dreams. Not nightmares exactly, just strange. I dreamed I was in the hallway at work, but all the unit numbers were wrong. They were in the wrong order, or they were numbers that don't exist, like 237.5 or negative numbers. I kept trying to find unit 237, but every time I thought I found it, the number would change when I looked directly at it. I woke up at 3 p.m. to my phone ringing. Rick. "Hey, we opened 237, he said. "And?" "It's empty." "Completely empty?" "Well, not completely. There's one thing in there." "What?" "A lock, just sitting in the middle of the floor. Old brass padlock." I sat up in bed. "Are you serious?" "Yeah. No idea what this person is doing. But they paid through March, so whatever. We locked it back up with a company lock, one of our standard ones. I documented it all. Took photos. If they come back and complain about us cutting their lock, we've got records." "What did the lock look like? The one inside?" "Old. Brass. Had some green stuff on it." "Patina." "Sure. Anyway, mystery solved, I guess. Someone's using a storage unit to store a single lock. I've seen weirder." "What about the camera glitches?" "I checked with our camera company. They said it's probably the DVR overheating. They're sending someone out next week to look at it." That made sense, sort of. "So we're good?" I asked. "We're good. Don't stress about it. See you tonight." He hung up. I sat there trying to process this. So someone rented a unit to store a lock. And then, what? They kept coming to visit their lock, and sometimes they brought other locks. None of that made sense. Well, but it doesn't make sense isn't the same as it's supernatural. People do weird stuff. Maybe this J. Hoffman person is a lock collector. Maybe they're rotating their collection. Maybe they're doing some kind of art project. Maybe I was overthinking this. I got up, showered, ate something, checked my phone. I had the photos of the different locks still. Okay, so I'm going to finish this, but I want to say something first. The part I'm about to get into is the reason I finally posted this. It's the part that keeps me up at night. I left some stuff out earlier because I was trying to keep this short. But screw it. If you've read this far, you deserve the full story. Subscribe because I'm thinking about posting the actual evidence I mentioned. Photos, recordings, the works. It's on. I don't know if I should make that public, but if enough people want to see it, I'll figure out how. Anyway, back to that night. I got to work at 10 p.m. Rick had already left. Dennis was just heading out. "That unit situation figured out?" Dennis asked. "Yeah, all good." "Good deal. Quiet night, probably." He left. I was alone. I did my first walkthrough. Building A, fine. Building B, fine. I stood at the entrance to Building C for a minute. This is stupid, I thought. It's just a building. It's just a storage unit with a weird renter. I went up to the third floor. The hallway looked normal. Fluorescent lights humming. Orange doors. Concrete floor. I walked to Unit 237. The company lock was on it. Standard master lock, silver, normal. I tried it. Locked solid. I took a photo just to document it. I continued my rounds. Building D, but fine. Back to the office. I checked the cameras. Everything normal. At midnight, I did my walkthrough again. Building A, B, C, stopped at Unit 237. The company lock was gone. The old brass lock was back. The one with the heavy green patina from the first night. My heart started doing that thing where you can feel it in your throat. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called Rick. Voicemail. Rick, it's Matt. I'm at Unit 237, and our company lock is gone. The old brass lock is back on it. I'm looking right at it. Please call me back. I hung up and just stood there, staring at the lock. This wasn't someone coming during the day and changing locks. It was 12:15 a.m. Dennis had left at 10 p.m. I'd been here the whole time. I checked this exact lock 90 minutes ago. I pulled up the camera footage on my phone. Yeah. No, we have an app for that. It's janky, but it works. Scrubbed back through the last 2 hours. Empty hallway. Me walking through. Empty hallway. No flicker this time. Just empty. I reached out and touched the lock. It was warm. Everything else in that building was cold. It's February. The building's not heated. My breath was making fog, but the lock was warm, like body temperature. I pulled my hand back. The engravings on the lock were glowing faintly. Just barely. Might not have noticed it if I wasn't looking close, but there was a very faint, greenish light coming from the engraved letters. I backed away from the door. My phone rang and I dropped it. It clattered on the concrete floor. I picked it up, Rick calling back. Yeah, I answered. What's going on? The lock. It changed, and it's warm, and it's glowing. Matt, slow down. What do you mean glowing? The engravings. They're giving off light. Green light. Silence on the other end. Rick? I'm here. Okay. I want you to go back to the office. Don't touch the unit. Don't go near it. I'm coming in. It's midnight. You don't have to. I'm coming in. 30 minutes. Wait in the office. He hung up. I looked at the lock one more time. The glow was brighter now, definitely visible. The letters. I still couldn't make out what they said, but they were glowing bright enough to cast shadows. I walked back to the office, fast, not quite running but close. Sat down at the desk, pulled up all the camera feeds, watched Unit 237's hallway. The light from the lock was visible on camera, a faint green glow spilling out into the hallway. So I wasn't hallucinating. The camera saw it too. I took a screen recording on my phone. Evidence. While I waited for Rick, I did something probably stupid. I Googled the address listed for J. Hoffman again. The vacant lot. I pulled up Google Street View and went back through the historical images. You can do that. See what a place looked like in previous years. 2022. Vacant lot. 2019. Vacant lot. 2015. Vacant lot. 2012. Vacant lot. 2008. Building. I zoomed in on the 2008 image. It was an antique store. I could read the sign. Hoffman's Antiques and Curiosities. I felt my stomach drop. I searched Hoffman's Antiques, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Found an old newspaper article from 2009. Local antique store closes after owner's death. The article said that Joseph Hoffman, 73, owner of Hoffman's Antiques, had died in August 2008. The store had been in the family for 3 generations. No surviving family members. The building had been demolished in 2011. I looked at the rental agreement date for Unit 237 again. August 15th, 2023. 15 years after Joseph Hoffman died. I heard the front gate beep. Someone entering a code. I pulled up the gate log. Rick's code. He was here. He came into the office looking worried. "Show me," he said. We went to Building C together, up to the 3rd floor. The hallway was dark. The fluorescent lights were off. "Did you turn off the lights?" Rick asked. "No." We both had flashlights. The beams cut through the darkness. We walked to Unit 237. The lock was glowing bright green now, bright enough to read by. The engravings were clearly visible. They were dates. August 15th, 1893. August 15th, 1923. August 15th, 1953. August 15th, 1983. August 15th, 2013. August 15th. The last date was incomplete, to just question marks where the year should be. "What the hell?" Rick whispered. He reached for the lock. "Don't," I said. He pulled his hand back. We stood there staring at it. "Every 30 years," Rick said. "August 15th, every 30 years. 2043, I said. The next one would be 2043. 20 years from now. I pulled out my phone and took photos. Rick did the same. The lock started to vibrate. Just slightly, but we could both see it. "We need to open it," Rick said. "Are you insane?" "Matt, there's a rational explanation for this. Has to be. Maybe it's phosphorescent paint. Maybe it's a prank. Someone with access to the building is screwing with us." "Dennis? Dennis is pranking us with a glowing lock that knows dates from the 1800s? We're opening it." He went to his truck and came back with a bolt cutter. "Rick, I really don't think—" He cut the lock. It fell to the ground, and the glow immediately died. Just a normal brass lock with patina. Rick lifted the door. The unit was empty except for the lock on the floor that Rick had mentioned earlier. But as we shined our flashlights in, I saw something else. Writing on the walls. Hundreds of words, scratched into the drywall with something sharp, covering every surface. Rick stepped inside. I followed. The writing was in different hands, different styles. Some of it looked old, the scratches dark with age. Some looked fresh. I started reading. Can't leave. 1893. The door won't open from inside. 1923. Hello? Is anyone there? 1953. I've been here for hours. 1983. Please help. 2013. And then, in fresh scratches near the door, my name is Joseph Hoffman. Today is August 15th, 2023. If you're reading this. The door slammed shut behind us. The lock clicked. Rick grabbed the door and pushed. It didn't move. "No, no, no," he said, pushing harder. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Of course no signal. We're in a climate-controlled building with concrete walls. Rick was slamming his shoulder into the door now. It didn't budge. "The cameras," I said. "Dennis will see us on camera when he comes in at 6 a.m. Matt, what time is it?" I checked my phone. 12:47 a.m. We both went silent. 6 hours. Dennis would be here in 6 hours. Rick kept trying the door, kicking it, slamming it. Nothing. I looked at the scratches on the wall again, read more of them. Tried for days. 1893. Food ran out. 1923. Nobody comes. 1953. The time is wrong. 1983. "Rick, look at this." He came over. I pointed to the last one. "The time is wrong." What does that mean? I had a horrible thought. "Check your phone. What time is it?" He pulled out his phone. 12:47. It's been like 3 minutes since we came in. "Yeah, so?" "Check again." He looked. His face went pale. Still 12:47. We stood there as the realization hit us. The time wasn't moving. I checked my phone. 12:47. Watched it. The seconds weren't ticking. "This is a prank," Rick said. "This has to be a prank. Someone's messing with us." "Who? Who would do this?" "I don't know, but—" He stopped. We both heard it. Scratching. Coming from the walls. Not from inside this unit. From the other side of the walls. From the other units. All around us. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Like hundreds of fingernails on drywall. Rick's breathing was getting fast. Panic breathing. "Ma, we're getting out," he said. He started slamming into the door again. Over and over. I looked at the walls, at all the messages scratched there over 130 years. I found a screw in the corner. Must have fallen out when they assembled the unit. I started scratching into the wall. "My name is Matt. Today is February 23rd, 2024. If you're reading this, what are you doing?" Rick shouted. "Leaving a message. We're not staying here." But I kept scratching, because I'd read all the messages. And I knew how they all ended. The ones from 1893 stopped after a while. Just ended mid-sentence. Same with 1923, 1953, 1983. Only the 2013 messages continued. Pages of them. Desperate scratching covering the back wall. The last message from 2013 said, "It's been so long, I can't remember anymore." How long? Days, weeks, no food, no water. But I'm not hungry, not thirsty, just tired. So tired. The time never changes. Still August 15th, 2013. Still 2:47 p.m. every time I check. Forever 2:47 p.m. I think I understand now. This is the space between. This is where we wait. Until, and then it just stopped. That was 10 years ago. Rick had stopped slamming the door. He was sitting on the floor now, breathing hard. "It's okay," he was saying. "It's okay. Dennis will see us. He'll get us out." But I was thinking about the dates on the lock. Every 30 years. The last one was 2013. The next one was supposed to be 2043. But we opened it in 2024. We opened it at the wrong time. I don't know how long we've been in here now. My phone still says 12:47 a.m. Rick's says the same. We stopped trying to break down the door. It won't work. We know that now, because we read the messages. The scratching from the other units stopped a while ago. How long ago? Hard to say. Rick is sleeping. Or I think he's sleeping. He's not moving. I've been scratching messages into the wall. This whole thing. Everything I can remember. Because someone will open this eventually. Maybe in 2043. Maybe sooner if someone else gets curious. I want them to know what happened. The lock is here in the unit with us. The one from the floor. It's glowing again. Faintly. I can see new dates appearing on it. August 15th, 1893. August 15th, 1923. August 15th, 1953. August 15th, 1983. August 15th, 2013. February 23rd, 2024. Our date, today's date, and one more date is starting to form below it. Still faint. I can almost make it out. February 23rd, 2054. 30 years from now. I hope whoever reads this doesn't open the door, but I know you will. You'll be curious, just like we were. So I'll leave you one last message, scratched here below all the others. Don't come in. Don't open it. Not until the right date. The lock knows. Listen to the lock. My phone is at 3% battery. Still 12:47 a.m. Rick hasn't moved in a long time. I'm so tired. I think I'll sleep now. See you in 30 years. That's what I found scratched into the walls of Unit 237 when I bought this storage facility last month. Previous owner sold it cheap. Said he wanted out of the business fast. I didn't ask questions. I was doing inventory of which units were rented versus vacant. Unit 237 showed as rented. Paid through 2054. But when I checked the access logs, nobody had entered it in months. I cut the lock and opened it. The walls are covered in scratches. 2 men were inside, deceased. See, Cedar Rapids police have identified them as Matthew Kern and Richard Swanson, both reported missing in February 2024. I don't know how they got in there. The door locks from the outside. The coroner can't determine cause of death. They're calling it unknown medical event. But I found their phones. Both stopped at 12:47 a.m., February 23rd, 2024. And I found a brass lock with dates engraved on it. The last date is February 23rd, 2054. I put a new lock on Unit 237. I'm not opening it again. If you're reading this, if you're the person who finds this post in 2054, or whenever, please don't open Unit 237 at the Cedar Valley Storage Facility off Highway 30. Or if you do, don't go inside. And whatever you do, don't go inside before the date on the lock. I don't know what happens if you open it at the right time. Maybe nothing. Maybe everyone trapped in there gets out. Or maybe someone else takes their place. So that's my story. I know I said I work security there. I did. Past tense. I quit the day I found them. Subscribe if you want to see the photos. I have photos of the scratched messages. Photos of the lock with the dates. I haven't shown them to anyone yet. And if anyone knows what this is, if anyone's heard of anything like this happening before, please reach out. The police closed the case as an accidental death. They didn't even want to hear about the lock or the messages on the walls. But I know what I saw. And in 30 years, that lock is going to call to someone else. I just hope they're smarter than we were. I'm not the type of person who believes in weird stuff, but I need to write this down while it's still fresh, because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do about it. My name is Matt. I'm 32, and I've been delivering mail for USPS for about 6 years now. The pay is okay, benefits are decent, and honestly, it's kind of peaceful driving around by myself all day listening to podcasts. I cover rural routes outside of Fort Stockton, Texas. Basically, a whole lot of nothing. Scattered ranches, oil field equipment, and that's about it. 3 weeks ago, they reassigned me to Route 47 because the previous carrier, Linda, retired early, which seemed weird because she was only like 58 and kept talking about working until 65 for the full pension. But whatever. People change their minds. Route 47 is about 90 miles of driving. Our services may be 40 addresses total. Takes most of the day because the properties are spread out. It's high desert out there. Flat, scrubby, hot as hell even in October. You can see for miles in every direction, which sounds nice, but it's actually kind of unsettling when you're not used to it. There's nowhere to hide, but also nothing to see. Just emptiness. My first week was fine. Normal. I got lost twice because the GPS doesn't work great out there, and some of the ranch roads aren't marked. But that's standard for rural routes. The residents are mostly friendly in that reserved West Texas way. They wave, sometimes leave cold water bottles in their mailboxes for me, don't talk much. It was my second Monday on the route when I first noticed the mailbox. I was about halfway through the route, maybe 11:30 a.m., hot, probably 94 degrees, and I was behind schedule because I'd had to backtrack after missing a turn. I came around this long curve. There's only one actual paved road for most of the route. Everything else is caliche or dirt. And there was a mailbox I didn't remember from the previous week. It was one of those standard black metal ones. Nothing special. The numbers read 7242. It was planted on the right side of the road, and there was a dirt drive leading back from it toward a cluster of mesquite trees, maybe a quarter mile off. I checked my route sheet. No 7242 listed. I figured it was new, or I'd missed it the week before. Sometimes people add mailboxes, and it takes a while for the paperwork to catch up. I made a note on my sheet and kept driving. The thing is, I didn't remember those mesquite trees either, and I've got a decent memory for landscapes, especially out here where everything's so empty that any landmark stands out. Wednesday, same week. I got to that curve around the same time, maybe 11:45. The mailbox was gone, just gone. No post hole, no disturbed dirt, nothing. Like it had never been there. I slowed down, looking for the mesquite trees. Couldn't see them either, which made sense, I guess. If I'd been wrong about the mailbox location, I'd be wrong about the trees, too. But I could have sworn they were right there. I spent like 5 minutes scanning the horizon with my phone camera zoomed in, feeling like an idiot. Nothing but flat scrubland in every direction. Okay, whatever. I was sleep-deprived. My apartment AC had broken, and I'd been sleeping terribly in the heat. I'd probably seen the mailbox on a different part of the route and got confused about where it was. Friday that week, I kept my eyes open around that curve. Nothing unusual. No mailbox, no trees, just road and desert. The next Monday, it was back. Same spot, same black mailbox, same numbers, 7242. Same mesquite trees in the distance. I pulled over and sat there staring at it for probably 2 minutes. My truck was idling, AC blasting, and I had that weird disconnect feeling you get when something is definitely wrong, but you can't quite figure out what. I got out and walked up to the mailbox. It was real, metal warm from the sun, slightly rusty around the hinges. The flag was down. I opened it. Empty. There was nothing weird about it. It was just a mailbox. But my hands were shaking a little as I closed it, which annoyed me because there was literally nothing to be scared of. I looked down the dirt drive toward the mesquite trees. The driveway looked traveled. There were tire tracks, recent ones. Someone lived back there, or at least drove back there regularly. I should probably mention, I had a strict policy about not going down driveways I didn't recognize. Too easy to get stuck, or run into an unfriendly property owner, or waste time. If it wasn't on my route sheet, I didn't deliver there. I got back in my truck and kept driving. That night I couldn't sleep, and not just because my AC was still broken. I kept thinking about that mailbox, the way it appeared and disappeared. I got on Google Maps and tried to find the location. Here's the thing. I could describe exactly where it was. About 34 miles into Route 47, right after the big curve near the dried-up stock tank. But when I looked at the satellite view, there was nothing there. No mailbox, no driveway, no mesquite trees. The satellite imagery was dated from 2021, so maybe it was just outdated. I checked the county property records online, looked up the address 7242 County Road 47. No results. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second because I've been typing this for like 40 minutes, and I'm realizing this is way longer than I thought it would be. If you're actually reading this and want me to keep going, subscribe or comment or whatever. I need to know someone's actually interested. Because what happened next is the part that made me start documenting everything, and it's going to take me a while to write it all out properly. If nobody's reading, I'm honestly just gonna go to bed. Let me know. So, anyway, back to what happened. Wednesday that week. I decided I was going to photograph the mailbox if it was there. Proof, documentation, whatever. I wanted to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. I got to the curve at 11:52 a.m. I remember because I checked my phone specifically to note the time. The mailbox was there. I pulled over, grabbed my phone, and took like 6 photos. Different angles, close-ups of the numbers, a shot of the driveway leading back to the trees, a wide shot showing the position relative to the road. I checked the photos immediately. They looked fine, clear, well lit, definitely showing a mailbox with 7242 on it. I opened the mailbox again, still empty. The inside had a little dust, a dead moth, normal mailbox stuff. Then I did something probably stupid. I walked about 20 feet down the driveway. The dirt was that caliche clay mix, a pale and hard-packed. The tire tracks were clear, looked like a truck, full size, probably F-150 or similar. Recent tracks, maybe within the last day or two. I could see the mesquite trees better from there. They were weird, too clustered, too green for October in the desert. Mesquite trees are tough, but these looked almost lush. and I couldn't see a house or any structure beyond them. But the driveway definitely continued. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. It was dead quiet except for the wind, which was picking up. That's normal for out here. You get used to the constant wind. But the sound of it in those mesquite trees was weird. Too loud or wrong somehow. Like it was coming from a different direction than I could feel it blowing. My phone buzzed. Text from my supervisor asking about my ETA for the last pickup. When I was running behind, I walked back to my truck, got in, and continued the route. That evening I looked at the photos I'd taken. They were there in my camera roll. 6 photos, time-stamped 11:54 a.m. But they showed nothing. Not blank photos. They showed the road, the desert, the exact spot where I'd been standing. But no mailbox, no driveway, no mesquite trees, just empty desert. I checked the metadata. Location data was correct. GPS coordinates matching exactly where I remembered being. The photos weren't corrupted or glitched. They just showed a different reality than what I'd seen. I sat on my couch staring at my phone for probably an hour. My AC was finally fixed, and the apartment was cold, but I was sweating. I did what everyone does. I Googled it. Mailbox appearing and disappearing. GPS coordinates showing nothing. Taking photos of things that don't show up. Found a lot of ghost hunter stuff, which wasn't helpful. Found some threads about camera glitches and lens flares. Found a Reddit post about infrasound. Basically sound waves below the range humans can consciously hear, like below 20 hertz. Apparently, it can be caused by wind moving across certain landscapes. And it can cause feelings of unease, visual disturbances, even that feeling of a presence nearby. It's a real documented thing. High desert, constant wind, flat terrain, perfect conditions for infrasound. That could explain the weird feeling I got standing near those trees. Maybe even explain visual distortions, seeing things that weren't quite there. Except it didn't explain the mailbox being in my photo's location data, but not in the actual images. I tried to let it go. I had 2 days off, Thursday and Friday that week, and I spent them trying not to think about Route 47. I visited my girlfriend in Midland, fixed a slow leak in my tire, caught up on sleep. Normal life stuff. Monday came around again. I almost called in sick. Seriously considered it. But I've got good attendance and didn't want to use sick time for something I couldn't explain. Also, part of me needed to see if the mailbox would be there. It was. Same spot. 11:48 a.m. Mailbox 7242. Mesquite trees. Dirt driveway. This time I didn't stop. I slowed down, looked at it as I passed, and kept driving. In my rearview mirror, I watched it recede into the distance. And here's what made my stomach drop. As I watched in the mirror, the mailbox looked wrong. The perspective was off somehow, like it was both behind me and also not quite in the location it should be from that angle. It's hard to explain. You know how sometimes in dreams, distances don't make sense? It was like that. I looked forward, looked back in the mirror again. The mailbox was gone. I stopped the truck, put it in reverse, backed up slowly. Nothing there. Just road and empty desert. I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, breathing too fast. That metallic taste in my mouth. Apparently that's adrenaline. My Fitbit was buzzing with a high heart rate alert. I finished the route. Took me an extra hour because I kept messing up, missing addresses, having to double back. My supervisor called to ask if everything was okay, and I said I was fine, just one of those days. That night I did something I probably shouldn't have. I looked up Linda, the previous mail carrier for Route 47. Found her on Facebook. Small town, everyone's connected. I sent her a message, kept it casual. Hey, I took over your old route. Any tips? Some of the addresses are kind of confusing. She responded within an hour. Which route? Route 47, I wrote. The Fort Stockton rural one. 3 dots showing she was typing. Then they stopped. Then started again. Then stopped. Finally. Sorry, don't know that route. I did Route 34 and Route 52. Good luck, though. I checked her employment record. It's semi-public for USPS employees. She'd been assigned to Route 47 for 8 years before retiring. I stared at that message for a long time. Don't know that route. Either she was lying, or she genuinely didn't remember. Both options were bad. I tried to respond, ask her directly, but I saw she'd blocked me. Just like that. Message sent. Then error. Message couldn't be delivered. Okay, so I know this is getting really long. I'm like an hour into writing this, and my hands are cramping. But I'm going to keep going, because the next part is important. Actually, you know what? If you've read this far, just subscribe. I know that sounds desperate, but I need to know people are actually reading this. I've got 3 more weeks of experiences from that route, and I'll only write them up if I know anyone cares. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just need to know this isn't disappearing into the internet void. All right, so here's what happened next. I went to the USPS office the next morning before my route started. I asked to see the official map for Route 47. My supervisor pulled it up on the computer. I watched over her shoulder as she scrolled through the address list. 43 addresses total. I scanned through them. All the ones I recognized were there. The Williams Ranch, the old Henderson place, the cluster of double-wide trailers near mile marker 23. No 7242. Everything okay? My supervisor asked. Her name's Patricia. She's worked there for like 20 years. Yeah, just wanted to double-check something. I couldn't figure out how to ask the question I actually wanted to ask. Has this route changed recently? Not in the 5 years I've been managing it. So why? Just thought I saw a mailbox that wasn't on the list. She looked at me with that expression people get when they're trying to figure out if you're incompetent or just having a bad day. If there's an unofficial mailbox, don't service it. People try that sometimes. Put up a box without filing the proper paperwork. It's not our responsibility. Right, yeah, that makes sense. I started my route. I had a plan. I was going to drive past the curve without stopping, without even slowing down. Just ignore it completely. Maybe if I didn't engage with it, it would stop happening. Got to the curve at 11:44 a.m., earlier than usual because I'd been driving faster, anxious to get it over with. The mailbox was there, but this time the flag was up. That meant outgoing mail. That meant someone had put something in the mailbox for me to pick up. I drove past it, kept my eyes on the road, hands at 10 and 2, focused on the center line. In my peripheral vision, I could see it as I passed. Black mailbox, red flag up, mesquite trees in the distance. I made it maybe a quarter mile before I stopped the truck. Here's the thing about being a mail carrier. It's a federal job. You take an oath. You have responsibilities. If there's outgoing mail, you pick it up. That's the job. Also, and I know this sounds stupid, but part of me needed to know what was in that mailbox. I sat there arguing with myself for probably 5 minutes. My phone showed 11:51 a.m. I was way behind schedule now. I put the truck in reverse and backed up. The mailbox was still there, flag still up. I got out. It was hot, probably 96 degrees, and the wind had that gritty quality that means dust storm coming later. The sky was that washed-out blue-white you get out here. I walked to the mailbox. My hands were steady this time, which surprised me. I guess I'd moved past fear into just needing to understand. I opened the mailbox. There was a letter inside. Standard white envelope, letter-sized. No postage stamp, no return address. Just one line written in the address field, in blue pen, neat handwriting. For the mail carrier, I picked it up. The envelope was sealed. It felt like normal paper, normal weight. There was definitely something inside. Felt like a single sheet of paper, maybe two. I stood there holding it for probably 30 seconds. The wind was making that wrong sound in the mesquite trees again. My ears were ringing. That high-pitched whine you get in total silence, which made no sense because it wasn't silent. The wind was loud. I looked down the driveway. The mesquite trees were closer than they should be. I don't mean they'd moved. I mean the distance had changed. What looked like a quarter-mile before now looked like maybe 100 yards. The trees were too detailed. I could see individual branches, the pattern of light and shadow. And beyond the trees, I could see something else now. A structure of some kind. Couldn't make out details, but something was definitely there. I put the letter in my mailbag with the outgoing mail, put the flag down on the mailbox, got back in my truck. My hands were shaking now. I checked my phone. 11:58 a.m. I drove away without looking back. Finished the route on autopilot. Didn't really remember any of it. Honestly. Just went through the motions. Mailbox, delivery, mailbox, delivery, scan, document, repeat. Got back to the post office at 4:30 p.m. Sorted my outgoing mail for processing. The letter wasn't there. I checked my whole bag 3 times. Checked the truck. Checked between the seats. Checked everywhere. It was gone. But I remembered putting it in the outgoing mail section. I specifically remembered the feel of the envelope, the handwriting, the words for the mail carrier. I even remembered where I'd placed it in the stack, between a Netflix return envelope and a bill payment to the electric company. I went home, sat in my apartment with all the lights on, even though it was still light outside. Ordered pizza I didn't eat. My girlfriend called and I let it go to voicemail. I opened my photos again. I'd scrolled back to the pictures from Wednesday. Still nothing in them except empty desert. Then I noticed something I'd missed before. In the wide shot, the one showing the general area where the mailbox should have been, there was a smudge. Not a lens flare or a fingerprint on the screen. An actual smudge in the image itself, right where the mailbox should be. I zoomed in on it. The smudge had structure. Vague, blurry. But there was something there. The more I looked at it, the more my eyes wanted to resolve it into a shape. A rectangular shape. Mailbox-sized. But every time I thought I could see it clearly, it shifted back to just being a blur. I couldn't look at that photo anymore. I closed the app, put my phone face down, and tried to sleep. Tuesday, I called in sick, faked a stomach thing. Patricia sounded annoyed, but didn't push it. Wednesday, I went in. Couldn't keep calling in sick without a doctor's note, and I couldn't explain this to a doctor. The route went normally until the curve. 11:46 a.m., the mailbox was there. Flag down. I drove past it without stopping. In my rearview mirror, I watched it. This time, it didn't disappear. It stayed solid and real-looking until I turned a corner and lost sight of it. Thursday and Friday, same thing. Mailbox there, I drove past, no issues. The next week, Monday. I was almost relaxed. I'd convinced myself it was over, or that I'd figured out the trick. Just don't stop, don't engage, and it can't affect you. 11:43 a.m. came around the curve. There were 2 mailboxes, both black, both marked 7242. One in the usual spot, one about 50 feet further down the road. So I slowed down without meaning to. Just an automatic reaction to something unexpected. Both had their flags up. I sped up again, drove past both of them. Watched in my rear view. They stayed there for a few seconds, then both disappeared at the same moment, like someone had deleted them. Tuesday, 3 mailboxes, all marked 7242, all with flags up. Wednesday, 5. Thursday, I counted 8 mailboxes stretching along the road, all identical, all with their flags up, all marked with the same numbers. Friday, I stopped counting. There were dozens, maybe more, lining both sides of the road, receding into the distance in both directions. All identical, all with red flags up. And the mesquite trees, they were multiplying too. Clusters of them behind each mailbox, all that same two-green color, all making that wrong wind sound. I drove through them with my eyes locked straight ahead, hands clenched on the wheel. It took maybe 30 seconds to get through the stretch where they all were. The whole time my phone was buzzing, Fitbit heart rate alerts, texts coming in, but I didn't look down. When I checked my rearview, the road behind me was empty. Normal. Like it had never happened. I pulled over about a mile past and sat there shaking. Checked my phone. The texts were from my girlfriend asking about dinner plans. Normal stuff. My Google Maps timeline showed my route, showed me driving straight through that section without stopping. No gaps in the data. No anomalies. I checked the timestamps. When I'd entered that stretch of road, it was 11:44 a.m. When I'd exited, it was 11:47 a.m. 3 minutes to drive what should take 30 seconds. But I remembered it taking 30 seconds. I called Patricia, told her I needed to switch routes, family emergency, medical thing, anything. I made up some story about needing to be closer to town. She said she'd see what she could do, but Route 47 was short-staffed. Linda had just retired. They didn't have anyone else qualified. What about the carrier before Linda? I asked. Pause on the line. There wasn't anyone before Linda. She opened that route 8 years ago when they redistricted. Are you sure? The route's been there longer than that, right? Matt, is everything okay? You sound stressed. I told her I was fine. Ended the call. That weekend I drove out to Route 47 on my own time. Didn't tell anyone. Just took my truck and went out there on Saturday afternoon. Found the curve. Drove slowly, looking for the mailbox. No, nothing. Just empty desert on both sides. I got out and walked around. The ground was undisturbed. No post holes, no tire tracks leading off the road. No mesquite trees visible anywhere on the horizon. I pulled out my phone and checked the GPS coordinates. Cross-referenced with the location data from the photos I'd taken. I was definitely in the right spot. I stood there for probably 20 minutes, just looking. The wind was blowing, same as always. Hot sun, empty landscape, nothing unusual. I got back in my truck and drove the whole route. Took about 2 hours since I wasn't stopping for deliveries. Checked every mailbox, every address. All of them matched my route sheet. All of them were normal, real, consistent. Got home and couldn't shake this feeling, like I'd missed something obvious. Sunday night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the letter. For the mail carrier. What had been in that envelope? Had it been meant for me specifically, or for whoever happened to be carrying the route? And if I hadn't picked it up, if I'd just left it there, would any of this have escalated? Monday morning, I went in early and talked to Patricia again. Told her I really needed to switch routes, that I'd take a pay cut, different schedule, whatever it took. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Matt, you don't have Route 47. You've been on Route 34 since you started 6 years ago. I stared at her. What? She pulled up my assignment on the computer, turned the screen to show me. There it was. My name. Route 34. Start date 6 years ago. No. You reassigned me 3 weeks ago. Linda retired from Route 47 and I took it over. Patricia's expression changed. Got careful. Linda's been retired for 2 years, Matt. She did Route 52 and Route 47. She typed something, frowned. We don't have a Route 47. We have 34, 52, 61, and 88. No 47. She suggested I take the rest of the day off. Suggested I might want to see a doctor, maybe talk to someone. Stress can do weird things. I left the office, sat in my truck in the parking lot, checked my phone calendar. 3 weeks of route deliveries logged. Checked my mileage records. All the miles were there. Checked my time card. All the hours were there. But according to Patricia, according to the USPS system, I'd been doing Route 34 the whole time. I drove out to Route 47 again. This time, I used my personal GPS, not the USPS one. No route found, it said. I tried Google Maps. The road I'd been driving for 3 weeks didn't exist in the app. The county road numbers jumped from 46 to 48. I drove out anyway, following memory, found the general area. But the roads were different. The curve where the mailbox appeared. There was no curve. The road was straight there. I got out and stood looking at the landscape. Same desert, same sky, same wind. But the geometry was wrong. The distances were wrong. Nothing lined up with my memory. My phone rang. My girlfriend. I answered. "Hey, where are you?" she asked. "You said you'd be here at noon." I had no memory of making plans with her. "I'm just driving around. I'll head over now." "You okay? You sound weird." "Yeah, I'm fine." I wasn't fine. That was 2 weeks ago. I've been doing Route 34 since then. Patricia watches me kind of carefully now, like she's waiting for me to have a breakdown. My girlfriend keeps asking if something's wrong. I told her work stress, which isn't really a lie. I still have the photos on my phone, the ones that show nothing but have that weird smudge. Sometimes I look at them, try to make the smudge resolve into something clear. It never does. Last night I had a dream. I was standing in the desert, near those mesquite trees. I could see the structure beyond them clearly for the first time. It was a house, old ranch style, single story. There was a porch with a rocking chair moving slightly in the wind. In the dream, I walked toward it. The distance stayed constant no matter how long I walked, like a treadmill. Then I was at the mailbox, flag up, and I opened it. Inside was the same letter. So for the mail carrier. I opened it this time. The paper inside was blank except for one line. Same neat handwriting. 7242 is waiting for you. I woke up at 3:47 a.m., that specific time where you're too wired to sleep but too tired to function. Checked my phone out of habit. I had a new email. Spam folder. Subject line. Route 47. Official USPS notice. I opened it even though I knew I shouldn't. The email address was gibberish, obviously not from USPS. The message body just said, "You have undelivered mail at 7242. Please complete your route." I deleted it. Blocked the sender. This morning, I checked my mailbox at my apartment. Just regular mail. Bills, junk, a package I'd ordered. At the bottom was a white envelope. No stamp, no postmark. Just my name written in neat blue pen. I haven't opened it yet. It's sitting on my kitchen counter right now. I keep walking past it, looking at it, not touching it. Part of me knows I should throw it away. Burn it, maybe. Part of me knows I'm going to open it eventually. I'm writing this because I need a record. If something happens, if I disappear, or start forgetting things, or end up insisting I've been on a route that doesn't exist, someone needs to know. This isn't over. I don't know what it is, but it's not over. If you've made it this far, if you've actually read this whole thing, then you know as much as I do now. Which isn't much. I don't have answers. I don't have explanations. I just have this experience that apparently either didn't happen or happened in a way that reality doesn't want to acknowledge. The envelope is still sitting there. I can see it from where I'm typing this. I think I know what I'm going to find inside when I finally open it. An address, maybe a route map, maybe just those numbers again, 7242. And the thing is, if it tells me to go back, to drive Route 47 one more time, to find that mailbox, to see what's beyond those mesquite trees, I think I might do it. Not because I'm brave, because I need to know if any of this was real. because the not knowing is worse than whatever might be waiting out there in the desert. I'll update if anything else happens. If I open the envelope. If I find Route 47 again. Subscribe if you want to know what happens next. I've still got that envelope to open. And honestly, based on everything that's happened, I think opening it is going to lead somewhere I can't come back from. But I'm going to do it anyway. Thanks for reading this far. Just knowing someone else knows about this now makes it feel less like I'm losing my mind. Or maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure anymore. I'll post an update soon, promise.